Leadership. One of the most important aspects of leadership is communication. And one of the most important aspects of communication is storytelling. That's why I'm so excited to mention the Stories with Traction course with you. In this course, you will learn how to be a great storyteller. I share concepts with you on how you can boost sales, enhance your internal communication and marketing, and create a vibrant company culture. If you're looking to build a story bank for your organization and utilize a framework to persuade more effectively, go check out the course in the show notes, the Stories with Traction course. Now, on to the podcast. Persuading people to take the actions we want can be hard. Our teams and clients are bombarded with thousands of messages every single day. But there is a way for you to get above the noise. Stories. This is the Stories with Traction podcast, and I'm your host, Matt ZAUN. Join my guests and me as we unpack the power of storytelling. We'll talk about topics like leadership, sales, and marketing, all through the lens of strategic storytelling. Enjoy this episode. I will never forget the last conversation that I had with my grandfather before he died. My grandfather was one of my heroes in life. This was a man that had a tremendous impact on me, and he was a fighter. Not only was he a fighter figuratively, fighting for his family and fighting for his community, but he was a fighter literally. He actually received his Purple Heart during World War II because during a combat mission, he got shot in the hand. And I'll never forget sitting at his dining room table and him leaning over saying, "Matt, what did I fight for?" Taken back by his question, I asked him to repeat himself. He said, "What did I fight for? Did I go to war so our leaders could argue, bicker, and complain and get nothing done? Is that what I fought for?" He said, "Did I fight so certain people in this country would continue to remain unequal? Is that what I fought for?" And then he said, "No, I fought so every man, woman, and child, regardless of race, regardless of religion, regardless of what they will do as a profession, can live out their God-given ability and live in a free and just nation. That's what I fought for." And then he said, "Every morning that you wake up, never forget what you're fighting for. People, Matt, people are always worth fighting for." That conversation at that dining room table would be the last time that I would ever see my grandfather. Soon after this conversation took place, he ends up passing away. Now, this was a huge turning point in my life because not only was this last conversation forever burned in my mind, where I can literally see this experience as if it's happening right now. I remember every element and detail of this story. So not only was this experience memorable, but the months leading up to his passing, we had dozens of conversations where in these conversations, he implored me to get involved in politics, telling me the importance of working with leaders that had courage and integrity. There was a problem. One, it's very difficult to find leaders that had the caliber of character and integrity my grandfather had. So yes, that was a problem. There was another problem that was even bigger for me, though, personally. At this time in my life, I could not speak. So when I say I couldn't speak, not only could I never have fathomed doing any kind of public speaking, which was an absolute nightmare to me, which is funny because today that's one of the things that I do professionally, which is crazy to think about. So not only could I never think in my mind of doing any kind of public speaking or hosting a podcast, but at that time in my life, I couldn't even connect with someone one-on-one comfortably. I had so much social anxiety. It was mentally paralyzing. I don't know if anyone listening to this episode has ever experienced any kind of social anxiety. Mine was off the charts. So the thought of going into the political arena where I would need to connect with other human beings, it just wasn't going to happen. At that moment of my life, I considered myself a facts and figures guy. I was the numbers guy. I don't know if you've ever heard someone say that to you. I'm a numbers person. I don't use stories. It's just kind of funny because if they truly were a numbers person, they would know what stories do for their numbers, right? It boosts your numbers, boosts your sales, enhances your ability to connect with people. So if someone truly claims to be a numbers person, they do everything they could to figure out how to be a better storyteller, but that's a different conversation for a different day. But I was in the same boat. I was a numbers person through and through, or so I thought, really focusing on data points and how to unpack different elements of numbers. What does the data say? And I was focused on business. Went into the business world and I worked behind the scenes and I did very well for different companies, focusing on different elements of numbers, looking at spreadsheets all day. But this ate at me. This idea of my grandfather's plea, his wanting for me to go into the political arena. And I don't know if you've ever felt or experienced a calling on your life, something that you truly know you have to do, but you don't do it. Tends to eat at you. It kind of gnaws on you and you feel flustered. You have to kind of get it off your back. You have to engage. And the political arena was that for me. So I started getting involved behind the scenes on dozens and dozens of campaigns from a research capacity. Okay, from a research capacity, focusing on numbers. And I quickly realized that no one cared about my numbers. No one cared about the facts and figures. No one was inspired by that. It all came down to storytelling. And for years, I experienced trial and error and mistakes like you wouldn't believe on how to try to impact people. All came down to storytelling. And after several years of headaches and anxiety and frustration and anger to try to figure all this out, I learned different elements of how people can share stories better to connect with people they are trying to influence. And I end up becoming a political speechwriter for dozens of different candidates, different politicians, elected officials. And I noticed different elements when it came to the storytelling process that just created this incredible obsession in me. I couldn't stop obsessing over this. How do leaders communicate certain points? How do whether you were talking about governments, so people that run government, if we're talking about different influencers, if we're talking about different people throughout history that have radically improved people's life, and they've been able to get to that spot by communicating different points. I obsessed over all these different things. It all came down to storytelling. So over the last, I don't even know, 15 years, I've been on this crazy journey, working with politicians, working with CEOs, executives, sales people, different people in the marketing world, all across the United States of America, focusing on storytelling. It's about those stories. It's not about the numbers. The numbers are important. Don't get me wrong. It's important that we have different elements of facts and figures and we have our stuff together, but it's not what is going to sell a person. They're going to be sold on the story. So my encouragement to you is to focus on your story. What makes you you? Was there a moment in your life that was your big aha awakening moment? Maybe it was a mistake that you made. Maybe it was a mentor stepping in and helping you do X, Y, and Z. What was the moment in your life that there was a turning point? What is your origin story? Thank you for listening to the Stories with Traction podcast. Please leave a review, since positive reviews will make it easier for others to find this conversation. Next episode will launch on Friday at 8 a.m. Eastern. Until then, remember, if you want to persuade with power and inspire those around you to action, you must share more stories.